Gold participants and listeners from around the world. I'm Kristen Schwartz, licensed midwife and MC for Gold Learning. And today my guest is Dr. Ellen Chetwynd. Welcome, Dr. Chetwynd.
It's really good to be here.
It is so wonderful to have you here, and we are going to talk about tongue tie. Isn't that right?
Yes, absolutely.
And that's you are going to be a speaker here at the Gold Tongue Tie Symposium for us coming up here shortly. And before we get into that, I want to talk to you a little bit about your background. You have such an impressive background. You have a PhD, you're an RN, you are IBCLC, you are a breastfeeding researcher, lactation consultant, and advocate. So that shows me how passionate you are about this topic. And I can't wait to hear from you a little bit about your journey. How did it all start for you?
Uh, Actually, it was a midwife who told me that I needed to be a lactation consultant. So I will
Is that right?
I will be forever grateful to her because it has turned out to be my passion. I was working at a family medicine clinic as their perinatal nurse clinician, and there was no one in particular to help breastfeeding women in the clinic. And she one day told me, Ellen, you know what we need? We need a lactation consultant, and you know, as well as I know, who it needs to be to go and get that lactation consultant training. So she and the other clinic physicians arranged for me to get the training, and I have really bonded with the topic.
How wonderful. How wonderful. What a nice background story there. Thank you so much for sharing that. How wonderful. And I have the greatest respect as a midwife for lactation consultants. I can tell you this. I know their education is long and they're passionate about. So I love also working with lactation consultants together as well.
That's wonderful because I love working with midwives. My current clinical practice is at an out-of-hospital birth center, so
Uh-huh.
it's entirely midwives.
Oh, how wonderful. So tell us a little bit about your work in the birth center then.
So at the birth center, it's called the Women's Birth and Wellness Center in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. We're an out-of-hospital birth center in North Carolina where I think it's around 400 births. Babies are birthed every year, roundabout. And we have attached to the birth center, within the same building as the birth center, a full service lactation program. So we see moms and babies 6 days a week. About half of our clients are women from the birth center who give birth in our center, and about half the clients are from the community. We've become a referral source in our area, which is kind of fun. So we get a lot of referrals in from pediatricians, other lactation consultants, body workers, that kind of thing. Our appointments are nice and long. We're reimbursed by insurance. It's a really lovely setup to work in. And working with midwives who are in the out-of-hospital birth setting is pretty special as well.
That sounds wonderful. It sounds like the ideal situation you have going there, that you have that the whole program there attached to the birth center, like comprehensive, holistic. It sounds just like a wonderful program, 6 days a week, or even every day of the week, so to speak. What a perfect setting.
It is really nice. We also have what we call a complex breastfeeding clinic. So if things
Hmm.
get medically complicated, if there are things that come up in the lactation consult that need more of a full scope
Mhm.
approach, we do a clinic that is a joint clinic between a lactation consultant and our family medicine physician, the medical director at the birth center. And that's another really nice setting. It allows us to, follow our clients when they need more medical treatment, and
Right.
provide that continuity of care.
Right. Yeah, that should be a model for all out of all facilities out there, from what I hear. That sounds absolutely fabulous. So you are also the chair of the North Carolina Breastfeeding Coalition, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And you've done some amazing work in that capacity as well. Among many other things, you have you've overseen a support for clinics seeking to become breastfeeding friendly, and also you implemented a statewide breastfeeding summit. Tell us a little bit about that summit.
So the Breastfeeding Summit, North Carolina Breastfeeding Summit, is specifically about breastfeeding in North Carolina. One of the things that we realized as a coalition is that we have so much talent, so many breastfeeding resources in North Carolina, and we wanted to create an opportunity to showcase what we had available here in the state. So we don't bring in any really big international or national speakers. We specifically keep it to breastfeeding workers and advocates in North Carolina presenting for the rest of us in North Carolina. So it's an opportunity for all of us to come together and interface and network. And we've created a couple of different sessions that we are especially proud of. One is what we call the Lactation Science Fair. And the Lactation Science Fair is a way that we're trying to build the presentation skills of our own lactation consultants, peer breastfeeding support providers, and advocates in the state. So we don't have them submit a fancy abstract. We have them send us a couple of sentences of their idea. We try and keep it as interactive as possible. So, for example, this past year we had a pump petting zoo, which was all the different kinds of pump things that are out there that you could go and touch and work with and talk about. We've had people show how to make twiddle beads for nursing toddlers who like to play around with the other nipple to give them something else to work with. Just all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Like hematocrit we've had. So it's just a very open, lively format where people are able to walk around and talk and hear the presenters. And then the other one that we really like is It Works. And It Works is a format so that we can bring small projects to the fore of around a particular topic area, so that we get programs or stories about things that have worked in our state. So it's very state focused, and just has provided us for a lot of interaction with each other. And then
That
finally,
sounds fabulous.
if I can say one more thing about it,
Yes, of course you can.
the final thing that I'll say about it is that we also use it to plan what we're going to do as an advocacy organization for the next year. So we'll break down into perinatal regions, which are different areas of the state. And
Right.
each perinatal region will talk about what is important to their region and what they want to do. So
That's wonderful. And thank you for sharing that, because this is such a creative, I like that science fair and the petting zoo. That's such a creative way and interactive way of coming together and learning and exchanging ideas and concepts. So I think that is a great inspiration for others out there to maybe implement something in their communities like that.
it would be really fun if
Yeah,
we could start something. I'm sure
right.
there's other people doing similar things as well, but we have found it really, really fun in North Carolina.
Wonderful. Now let's talk a little bit about your topic. We're talking about tongue tie here. So your presentation for the tongue tie symposium here is the compensatory mechanics of suck for babies with oral tethering, how to identify and treat after revision. Tell us a little bit about this topic.
So one of the things that has come to my attention in the kind of the practice arm of what I spend my week doing is that often babies will come post-frenotomy still kind of compensating for what they didn't have prior to getting the frenotomy. In other words, their tongue was tethered. We fixed the tethering, but the baby hasn't figured out quite what to do with their new skills. Some babies, immediately after they get the frenotomy, you put them to the breast and everything is different. But there are a lot of babies out there after the frenotomy is done, or the frenectomy, whichever the baby is getting. There are a lot of babies who are still kind of habitually doing what they have been doing. And that habituation of suck is partly just that they haven't figured out the new kind of freedom that they have, freedom of movement that they have orally, but it's also because they've got all this lingering muscle memory in their bodies about the way that they've been using their whole body to compensate for that oral tethering. So, we might find that there are things going on between a baby's shoulder blades or in their rib cage or in the way they're using their upper lip that has compensated for their lack of mobility initially. And then after the frenotomy, we have to have a conversation with them where we say, that was a really good thing that you were doing before. I completely respect where you were and what led to this type of suck at the breast. But if you don't do this, what other options do you have? So it's kind of two pieces. One is being able to identify the compensatory measures that the baby took. But then the other is learning how to have the conversation with the baby where you're saying, that's not working anymore. What are you going to try next? Without forcing them into a new way of doing things, just kind of breaking down the old habits and asking them to make a step forward into a new habit. Because, none of us really like to be told what to do all the time. It's kind of more effective if we can decide things on our own, and babies are no different.
That is wonderful. From listening to you, what comes to mind here is that this is the topic you're presenting on. That is, I can imagine, often neglected. People think, parents, care providers, okay, now the baby had the revision, the baby had the clip or whatever was done. Now everything should be fine, right? So the afterwards to identify what's going on is so important. And I'm so glad you're presenting on this because I can see that this is probably something where we're a little bit lacking often in.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be presenting on this material. It's taken some years for me to see in this way, interpret the breastfeeding in this way. Some of it came about through this craniosacral training that I had earlier on. Some of it was just moving from being purely clinical to being thinking about things in a research clinical kind of way.
Right.
But it feels like good information. I'm happy to share it.
And I'm so glad you're sharing it. Thank you so much for spending time with me here today. And we're looking forward to seeing you on your Life Day on September 17th here for the Tongue Tie Symposium.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you. And now to our listeners, this presentation, The Compensatory Mechanics of Suck for Babies with Oral Tethering, How to Identify and Treat After Revision, is part of the Gold Tongue Tie Symposium of 2019. For more information on this presentation and the other presentations in the symposium, please visit goldlearning.com. Thank you everyone for listening. Bye-bye.